Hello students, and welcome to the causes of the Protestant Reformation. So the unit we're looking at is, was the Reformation, we're looking at the Protestant Reformation, and the big question we're asking is, was the Reformation a game changer? This is one of Mrs. Keating's dream places to go, the St. Peter's Basilica. Some of the people who worked on it were Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Botticelli. Well, if I'm looking at this, it's an expensive building project. And if I look, this is just one ceiling in the basilica. One of the famous chapels in the basilica is the ceiling painted by Michelangelo. So this is one of the, and why am I showing this building? Because it's kind of a cause of the Protestant Reformation. Because one of the things the church needs is they need large sums of money to build this beautiful church. And where do you get money? You get it from churchgoers. So let's look at some of the things, some background before we begin. So prior to the Reformation, all Christians were Roman Catholic that were living in the area of Western Europe. Remember that you have your Orthodox Christians in your areas. For example, you have your Greek Orthodox and you have your Ukrainians and your Russians. They are Orthodox. What we're talking about is Western Europe. We're focusing on Italy, France, Britain, well, England at the time, not Britain, Spain, Portugal. And the idea was there were problems in the Catholic Church. So your early reformers, where the word Reformation comes from, they wanted to fix the problems of the Catholic Church. And if I look at the word Protestant Reformation, they started out as protesters. Protest is in Reformation. So these were people, the Protestant Reformation began with people who saw problems in the Catholic Church. And one of the big ones is Martin Luther, because there was a huge problem in the Catholic Church with corruption. And Martin Luther wanted to fix the problems that were going on. However, what's going to happen, and you might want to put this in the results section of your notes that you have for homework, is that you're going to, one, get the church, some of the problems fixed, but most of what happens is you're going to end the Catholic unity, the Roman Catholic unity, because what's going to happen is Luther is the first, but then you're going to have Calvin and Henry VIII and Elizabeth II, who bring about new Christian churches, but Protestant churches. Remember, Catholics and Protestants are both Christians, but a Catholic is a Catholic and a Protestant is a Christian who is not Catholic. And the Reformation will cause this split between these Christian religions. So if I look, I have Christianity, and after the Reformation, it's going to split into Protestant and Catholic. Both are Christians. So you may want to put that in the results section. So as we mentioned before, some of the early reformers who wanted to fix the problems of the Catholic Church. Martin Luther and John Calvin, you may want to make a note somewhere, an annotation somewhere. These are religious reformers. Henry VIII and Elizabeth I are government, political reformers. They're going to use this Reformation for political gain. So the Protestant Reformation, as we said, is a movement leading religious reform, and they begin to reject. One of the big things that you're going to see with the Protestant Reformation is this idea that you have the power of the Pope. And the Protestants reject the Pope. You have two early reformers, Jan Hus and John Wycliffe, and while they're before the printing press, and a lot of their ideas, as we saw in class today, will come into the Reformation, but they don't get credit for it because they're before the printing press, and while they bring the ideas, they're not able to act on them. So what are the causes of the Protestant Reformation? Well, this first one is this Renaissance. You have this word secular. Secular means non-religious, because what you begin to do is the printing press is bringing books, and it's not just bringing religious books, it's bringing scientific ideas. It's challenging basic beliefs in the way we view the world. Just for example, the position of the sun is getting challenged during this time. So the secular world and this idea that individuals are important challenge the church teaching. In fact, this is where people, especially in Europe, begin to question the authority. The printing press. You have, as I mentioned before, so if I looked at this slide, I have Huss and Wycliffe. Well, Huss and Wycliffe, they're not able, they have these ideas, but they can't get them past their little areas where they were preaching. What ends up happening is, thanks to the printing press, automatically we have ideas spreading. It's Martin Luther's 95 Theses. He's putting that in Wittenberg. He begins to write. The publishers the printers are taking his writings, they're publishing them, and it's spreading all over Europe. Think of the printing press as the equivalent of social media today. How quickly we can find out about events in the world. Also, one of the things that was happening at the time that people resented was the paying taxes to Rome. If you lived in a Catholic in these European nations that were Roman Catholic, not only did you pay taxes to your government, but then you had additional taxes, and that money went to Rome. Remember how I told you you had to build this beautiful building? One of the ways that they were getting it was through taxes. People were paying taxes to Rome. You had to keep the Pope, you were paying for the bishops and the cardinals, so you were paying your taxes, and then additional money was leaving the country through taxes. And this is like one of those political reasons, because the kings are going to want that money to go into their own governments. The church had this usury. And this is going to be very important. The idea of usury is when I loan you money and I charge you interest on that money, that encourages the development of banks. Well, the church banned this. So your people people weren't lending money. Well, now all of a sudden, a lot of these Protestant churches, especially when we see John Calvin, are going to say, no, money is in the world of work. Work is not God. It is okay to lend and charge people for money. So this is going to be a cause, that economic control of the church. The church at this time is extremely wealthy and extremely powerful. Kings bow down before the Pope. This is going to cause a lot of issues. Many of your kings and queens who do this for political reasons are doing it for a power grab. Then they're looking at all the wealth, the best lands, the best farmlands in these countries belong to the church. So that is also making people angry. The monarchs didn't want somebody, I was put here by God, why do I have to listen to the Pope? This is my country, I know what's best. So the monarchs are looking for a way to challenge the Pope, and they are getting upset. You also have an Italian-controlled church. At the time, German and English nobles want some say in how the church is running, and all these Italians are running it. The Spanish king is supporting the king, so you have some Spanish. So you have this jealousy, and these groups are looking for a reason to break. Two of the biggest reasons, though, is the church corruption. You have rules that the church is to follow, and the church leaders are not. So people are saying, you're telling me to live this way, but you don't. So that's going to be another log on the fire of one of the things that is that tension building up. And the last one is the selling of indulgences. People were paying to get into heaven. And this is where Martin Luther is going to attack, and we're going to see this next class, this idea that I could buy my way into heaven. That's not how, God isn't really into money. But the church developed these indulgences, they were selling these indulgences, and then you were able to take them And you were able to take those indulgences and basically get out of get out of hell for a fee. And that was upsetting. So when we look at this, some of the results of those building up of tension, so the results of these causes are going to be Luther's 95 Theses, not him just not printing it, but it going and spreading around Europe. Christianity is going to split into your Protestants and your Catholics. Also, you're going to get this identity that my country eventually is going to become more important than my religion. I'm going to identify as I'm English, I'm Irish, I'm French. I'm not going to identify as I'm Catholic as much. And you're going to eventually get to where we get today, where many different religions are tolerated. And we will see other things. And remember, all this whole unit, when we're looking at these causes, we're looking at, was this a game changer?